actually truly Indian. I'm so patriotic that I believe in an Indian company should be registered and made in India. Not a lot many Indian companies are domiciled in Singapore.
Yeah.
No. And then they are all about Indian.
Hello and welcome to Office Insider. This is Sheetal Vanwari and my guest today is one of the coolest members of our office community, Mr. Rahul Singh, who is the CEO and founder of Bira Cafe. Welcome to the show, Rahul, and congratulations. I just heard about the Bira deal.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Our pleasure. So, when you started Bira Cafe, was this one of the things that you envisioned? This is what you wanted?
It's exactly been 10 years. So actually we're celebrating our 10 year this month.
Oh wow,
So
congrats.
thank you so much. So next week we'll be doing a big bash award for this 10 year milestone. But yes, if I reflect back 10 years back, what we realized was I was actually in a golf business. And prior to that, I was in the sports business. So for 15 years of my life, I actually worked in different careers. And then came a point that I wanted to turn an entrepreneur. And destiny took me towards golf, which is kind of an extension to the sports clothing business I was doing. So I ran that for about 5 years. And the cafe happened. Now, moving from a 4-letter golf to a 4-letter beer, there's hardly a difference from a perspective of letters. But at that point in time, what I realized was that we do have a paucity of good beers. So people were traveling. The world was kind of getting smaller, and people would expect the same beers they see across the world in their neighborhood, and that wasn't happening. So when we started off, we had about 5 or 6 beers on our SKU, and I was determined, literally obsessed, that we should get as many beers near your home, wherever you are, so that it could savor the world sitting, within the country. And that's what happened. So today we have almost crossed 100 beers from 20 countries. So I think the mission that we went upon is come out true.
That's awesome. So the thing is that when you first read about Bira Cafe, which is like, a very self-explanatory name, and then you take two things that people love, beer and cafe, and the first thing that strikes you is that why did no one else do it? So what made you realize, and you're not even from F&B.
Yeah.
So
it's a cliche. It says out of the box thinking from that perspective. It wasn't out of the box thinking. It is something that there were two perennial and evergreen names, like you rightly said, beer and cafe. You can't get simpler than that. So I think we kept with that simplicity. We kept ourselves absolutely towards what we are there for. We also at that time saw that there's a lot of nightclubs which were opening up in all kinds of size and concepts, but they were all very short and not perpetual in nature. Normally, it's said that the nightlife or the bar-centric business has a 9-month story. To survive 10 years and thrive for these 10 years it just means that you need to do something which is evergreen or what we call perpetual. So I think both beer and cafe are perpetual to that. And like I said, from a perspective, just keep it as simple. Taking in what you do, Office, if you look at it, one of the things I have to always do is tell everybody it's AWFIS, because it's a tongue in cheek, right? When it is Office, it's which office are you going to? Say I'm going to Office, it's AWFIS. But like you kept it as simple as that. And that's how it is. Sometimes simplicity works.
I think it always does. It's always a great thing. And you were telling me a little earlier about being a first-time entrepreneur.
Yes.
Yeah. So you worked for 15 years and then you became an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So from an employee perspective, what do you think differs the most as an employee to an entrepreneur?
Look, at the end of the day, in both the cases, whether you're an employee or an employer, you're there to fulfill a purpose, whatever that purpose is. If you're in the medical science or whatever field that you are, I think most of us would end up doing a job. If I go back into my own family, we're all from service background. Either people have gone into services, like the armed forces. My grandfather was a justice. My father was an IT engineer, worked in blue chip companies in entire life. So I think it's safer as what they say. It's safer to be in a job from that perspective. But ships are safe in an harbor, but that's not what ships are made for. And that's what actually become on me, where I had 2 or 3 people who actually had become entrepreneurs, and that bug bit me. And I said, okay, if I'm privileged enough to create jobs, so I'm a job creator rather than doing a job. At the end of the day, both of them will fulfill the same purpose. But if I have that privilege, why not use that privilege? And that's what I'm actually doing. And I can tell you, like 10 years down the line, whenever I do kind of, let's say, hang my boots, if I had failed, I would be, and failed miserably is not a problem, but had I not been, maybe that would have dawned upon me as a bigger failure than having tried it and failed, So that's what I'm coming from.
So, but you reached a point when you decided, okay, this is what I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So, for all the people out there who are debating that decision because, financial reasons or whatever it may be, what would be your advice to them?
So my advice is, look, at the end of the day, everything has a risk. You could be just standing out and something can happen to you. So do not, fear that. The entire idea is to, never curb your enthusiasm, whatever field that you are in. And, obviously taking that point where Awfis, as what you have, has created or fostered a spirit of entrepreneurship. You allowed people to come in as a single person, as a self-employed, or let's say a single startup, and startups like us and larger startups. And I think that is what we need. So that fostering wasn't there. It won't have that way that you find an idea which you think you can implement and do it. This is the best time. The next 10 years, 20 years are going to be the golden decades of India. And if you cannot actually, use these decades, I'm saying this is an opportunity lost. So I just go out and I tell everyone that, if you do have that privilege to become take that risk, take that step. There's a lot that's happening today. There's a lot that's actually being helped around. So you're getting talent. People are ready to work for entrepreneurs, which was not there. At one time, you would say, okay, I'll only work for corporate environment stuff. People are doing it. You have infrastructure like what you've created. You have funds coming in, which wasn't there, let's say, when I started off my own way. So I think a lot is happening today. And I think this is the time where many of us should come out of our comfort zones and say, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur and go and do it. And like I said, it's an enthusiasm game.
And I'm glad you brought up the whole point of talent. Because one of the things that, I've read about you is how employee-centric your policies are and how you involve your employees in everything. So is that, do you think that that's also because you've been an employee, so you have that perspective?
It actually also starts from a perspective where what is that sector that I'm in? So we are in the hospitality sector. I was not from this. I'm a textile engineer, running a hospitality venture. But when I realized what hospitality does, it's very people-centric. It's also about how they're being trained to smile, to serve, and always there. It's a very hard-working place. They work almost 14, 15 hours a day. When it's weekend, they're working harder. When it's a holiday or Diwali, Christmas, they're actually working even harder. So when we use our hospitality, we realize, on the other side, what they go through. So when I entered this sector, I realized there's a lot of work going on. And I'm grateful for what they do. They stand on their feet. They're actually literally standing and eating their meals. They don't have the comforts of an office that, a lot of us have. But what I realized was that, from a business, so if somebody asks me what's my business all about, and I keep telling them, we are not in the business of serving beer to people. Yeah? We are in the people business serving beer. So that is how I look at it. So I'm not in the beer business serving to people. I look at it, I'm a people's business serving beer.
Why the Bira deal?
So a stage comes in where you need to now change your orbit. If you look at it, if you have, let's say you have to go to the moon, it's said that you need to kind of reach an orbit. You kind of take a huge kind of a absolute rocket speed to reach an orbit. And then that orbit creates another one, which you basically, that's the shot that you go to the moon. And you just directly can't reach the moon, right? Now, that is how it works. So the first step was for us to go very fast, which happens through serious funding, which is venture capital. In my case, it was Mayfield. In your case, it's Sequoia, for example. You need to go through that. You can run this business at the 1 or 2 or 5 stations with family and friends' money or your own self-employed. That's nothing wrong with that. A lot of my friends do that and they're very happy with it. If you want to create something which is global in nature, and I look at it from a point of perpetual in nature, like 100 years, 200 years down the line, then how does that work? And it requires capital for sure. Capital is just not money, capital is also human. So you need the right people and you need the right money. And that happens together. That's what happened in the first stage. We reached that stage and then COVID hit us, which, turned around the entire hospitality industry. I think everybody suffered in their own way. We all went through that. And then, work from home happened, co-working didn't allow, all kinds of stuff happened. So I think our entire sectors got shaken up. Now that we've come out of the COVID and we're what we call ourselves COVID proof, we've seen the pent up demand, the amount of love that we've been able to get because people are going back to trusted brands, people are seeing, and I think we've seen that in the sector that we all are in, where there's a huge amount of pent up demand, people are coming back to our businesses. I just realized that this is the time where I need to take the orbit change. Now, there are two ways of looking at it, where I go for another round of funding, which is a larger side funding. I do a listing, or I do a strategic. And so purely from a functional point of view, listing ain't going to happen because right now it's not that big a size to be listed. It's got another complication. A larger round of funding, at this point in time, the world is going through their own hassles. No new money is coming. They call it the funding winter. Now, all that is happening in that stage. So if I wait my time, it might take a longer time. And I think I don't want to miss this opportunity. That's where the strategic is happening. So this is the strategic. And strategic happens at usually the last stage. So this is my last stage where we've been able to swap our shares with the company called Bira Beverages, which is the owners of Bira 91. And it was meant to be because both me and Ankur in this particular mall that we are in right now spent about 4 to 5 hours in 2009 drinking a lot of beer. So it's actually destiny. So I used to run a golf business here in this mall on the 4th floor, a very large golf place. And he came in with a lot of beers with him. At that time, he was importing beers. So he was, he was evangelist of beers. He had beers for 4 to 5 hours. And at that struck me that how beautiful beers can be and how easy then. And he's a computer engineer who's worked himself in the US, has nothing to do with beer. He just is obsessed with beer. And that rub off he gave me in 2009. And look what things happened. 14, 15 years down the line, we had one. So it was meant to be. And he went by producing beers. So he launched the brand Bira. He was an importer of beers and he produced his own brand. And Sequoia was the first shareholder there. And in my case, I went through the cafe route, which is the service route. So he went product, I went service, and today we're one. It's meant to be.
It is fabulous. So your story as an entrepreneur is really inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of people would be inspired. The reason, however, we call you one of the coolest people in the community is also your off-business activities and interests.
Yeah.
So, is it true? I read that you're an avid biker, and you're a jazz fan, and you love whiskey, not beer. So how does one get so cool?
They're actually all 4 here. So if you look at it, these are my 4 passions. This is been framed by my wife, and because she knows these passions, so she's framed them for life. So if you look, there's a malt glass. That's the jazz thing. That's the bikes, and that's actually gizmos. Which is the 4th thing that I love gizmos. From childhood, if I would get anything, I would literally break it apart and put it back.
So I have one last question for you. You have like this whole fascinating persona, right? However, when we meet you, you're probably one of the most down-to-earth people that we've spoken to. So what keeps you grounded? And you've done so much. So what's keeping you grounded?
I just for me, it's the attitude of gratitude. It starts with that. I have a huge amount of gratitude. So anything anybody does inspires me. Little things matter to me a lot. And I just look at it that, God's been so kind. We all go through ups and downs, but God's been there. There's been this whole blessing of, my parents, my family, my friends, and my well-wishers that somehow or the other I come through. And that just shows that I have to give that attitude, the gratitude for that. And that's what keeps me grounded. Or the other part is I believe that one should share. If you keep it to yourself, like the success is sweetest when it's shared. And I've always been a kind of, I've always believed that this is the way it works. And for me, it's always been sharing. So that also makes you a little grounded because when you share, you're ready to share anything that you have, whether it's my business, whether it's any interest that I have. A lot of people can actually, I'm just keeping it back. And I just love it. That's the way it works.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for joining us today. Everyone, continue following us on my office on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and do go to a beer cafe. It's fun, we promise you.
Keep beering. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.